Good evening. It's 8 o'clock. Our top headlines tonight. Well, as two-thirds of Pakistan is hit by floods, over 1,100 people dead. Though Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, tweeted on Pakistan floods, there's yet been no official aid request from Pakistan. Is Pakistan's politics preventing getting aid to their people? Also, 2 months of rain. What India can learn from Pakistan's climate emergency? JMM-Congress MLAs head to Raipur in Chhattisgarh from Ranchi after 6 days of no decision from the governor on the Chief Minister's fate after an EC recommendation on disqualification. The BJP says this is the last resort for the government, and the Chief Minister says that this is BJP's Operation Lotus. Shashi Tharoor for Congress President. Will he contest? Speculation on this as Bhupinder Singh Hooda and Prithviraj Chavan meet Ghulam Nabi Azad, as there's a Jammu and Kashmir Congress exodus today to join Ghulam Nabi Azad's new front. A young tribal woman is tortured, abused, made to lick urine in a house in Jharkhand. Accused is a BJP leader who led the Beti Bachao Andolan. The BJP suspends her after the video of this tribal woman goes viral. New Chief Justice Lalit, a man in a hurry with new announcements. 2 constitution benches will now sit 3 days of the week. Some of the cases to be heard include demonetization and the National Register of Citizens. No Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations this year at the Eidgah Maidan in Bengaluru. The Supreme Court orders status quo in the case, saying that it hasn't happened for 200 years here. Let it go to the Karnataka High Court if you want. Markets up today by over 2.5 points. The Sensex and Nifty surge as strong foreign inflows in the market boost the Sensex and the rupee. Our lead story tonight, well, the big story is actually coming out of Pakistan, which is facing unprecedented floods and a situation, yet it hasn't asked for aid yet from India. But let's just look at what we actually know about these floods and what the impact has been in Pakistan. Vishnu has these new satellite pictures. Vishnu.
That's right. In fact, these images will give you a very clear idea of just what the concern is. And remember, global warming impacting the Indian monsoon across the subcontinent. That's the big worry. Top climate experts say that there needs to be some sort of coordinated South Asia action. It's happening in Pakistan today. It could happen in India. Climate change is not South Asia's creation, the larger story. But let's now bring you those satellite images. Firstly, the area that we are focusing on now is an area called Rojan. You're going to be seeing villages on either side of the Indus next to this township. Let's bring you the first image. This is an image of before when the floods took place. As you can see over there, the Indus on your right, heavily populated areas. This is an image before 24th of March. Let's now bring you an image from 2 days back, the 28th of August. All of those white areas are where there are floods right now. Let's bring the 2 images together. On the left, before, on the right, as you can see, a huge swath of territory has been completely inundated. Let's give you more images of smaller areas which we can focus on. This is Rajanpur. It is a small town. On the 24th of March, no flooding. On the 28th of March, as you can see now, the entire area around this particular town has been flooded. The blue areas indicate that there is water in the township as well. So on the left and on the right, let's compare the 2 images before the floods and after the floods. A huge difference over there. Finally, one other area that we can actually focus on to give you an idea. This is just a small village, again in that Rajanpur area. On the left, 24th of March, and now let's bring you the next image on the 28th. Again, all of these white areas are where it's been entirely flooded. So let's put these 2 images together. As you can see, fertile land on the left, land under cultivation, and on the right it's completely inundated. Stark images showing the difference. And we've got one more series of images as well. This is Rojan, which is nearby, again, before the floods took place, and now. I think this is the most stark image because let's have it together. On the left, you can see cultivated land, farmland. On the right, completely underwater. Sonia.
No, and Vishnu, as you said, really the warning for India, because climate change can happen at any time. We're already seeing extremely heavy rain in drought-prone West India. So let's just look at some of the climate events, the climate calamities that have happened just in the last 6 months. Well, the heat wave, we've seen that record-breaking heat wave in both India and Pakistan. Also, India-Pakistan floods again in both countries, in parts of the countries where there's not normally been such heavy rain. There's been a below-normal monsoon this year in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and Jharkhand, which means that it pushes up costs of essentials like wheat and rice, even milk, because the heat wave has hit the costs of producing fodder. So what really is the current situation? So Pakistan, they're completely devastated by floods. They've just said that they will get IMF loans, but over 1,100 people are dead. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted yesterday on the floods in Pakistan, expressing his concern, but Pakistan has made no official aid request yet from India, even though yesterday a minister had said that they would look at perhaps trying to get vegetables from India. But are Pakistan's politicians preventing aid reaching our people by refusing to reach out to India to request for vegetables and food?
Eight weeks of relentless rains. The number of dead has climbed to over 1,100, over 3 million displaced and food in short supply. Amidst the intense pressure, Pakistan has said it is open to importing food, especially vegetables, from India.
इस बात को भी कंसीडर कर लेंगे कि अगर इंडिया से लैंड बॉर्डर के थ्रू इंपोर्ट करना पड़ेगा तो वो भी कर लेंगे क्योंकि ये सस्टेनेबल प्राइसेस नहीं है.
NDTV has learned though that Pakistan has not officially reached out to India for the movement of goods, that is food items, to Pakistan even under these stressful circumstances. Meanwhile, India has been holding certain discussions, and that's what has been reported as far as providing some sort of aid to Pakistan is concerned. This after the Prime Minister in fact had tweeted yesterday talking about how he hopes that normalcy can be restored in Pakistan after the devastation of the floods. Pakistan government under Imran Khan had suspended trade with India after the abrogation of Article 370 in 2019. However, as the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world in 2020, it partially lifted the ban to import medicines and raw material from India. But last year, the talk of importing sugar and cotton from India saw a U-turn from Pakistan yet again. Pakistan ministers have blamed climate change for the floods, the worst since 2010. Both Pakistan and India and other developing countries which have suffered intense and lengthy stretches of extreme weather are suffering the impact of climate change, while historically it's the rich nations to blame for the most emissions. Bureau Report, NDTV.
Global climate emergency now being felt here in South Asia. Let's go across the other big headlines. Well, in political news, it's now been 6 days since the Jharkhand governor received a recommendation from the Election Commission to disqualify the current Chief Minister Hemant Soren for allotting himself a mining lease. However, the governor hasn't done anything yet, and now the government has moved its MLAs of the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha and the Congress out of Ranchi to the Congress-ruled state of Chhattisgarh.
कुछ ऐसे भी हैं जो बिकने के लिए भी खड़े हो जाते हैं, कुछ ऐसे भी हैं जो नहीं बिकते हैं, जो पकड़े गए वो मुसीबत में, जो ना पकड़े गए वो वहां बल्ले बल्ले उनकी.
Return of resort politics. MLAs of the ruling JMM-Congress alliance in Jharkhand flying out to Raipur in a Congress-governed state amidst fears of horse trading of MLAs. It's been 6 days since the Election Commission, according to sources, recommended the Chief Minister be disqualified as an MLA over allotting a mining lease to himself while in office. Soren will have to resign. The governor is yet to decide when the sword should fall. The ruling alliance fears another play-out of Operation Kamal, where the BJP managed to split or topple the opposition governments in Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, among other states. The four-party alliance has a majority of 8 in the 81-member assembly.
ये कोई आश्चर्यचकित और नया परिपाटी नहीं है. और ना ही कुछ कानूनी होने जा रहा है। हर परिस्थिति का सामना करने के लिए सत्ता पक्ष तैयार है।
देखिए, कोई नई बात नहीं है। आज तमाम राज्यों के बारे में अगर हम चर्चा कर लें तो जिस प्रकार से चुनी हुई गैर भाजपा शासित प्रदेश की सरकारों को, लोकतांत्रिक तरीके से चुनी हुई सरकार, जनता के द्वारा चुनी हुई सरकारों को अपदस्थ करने के हर मुमकिन प्रयास किए जा रहे हैं, तो उसको लेकर के एक रणनीतिक हमारी इसको मूव कह सकते हैं।
कानून अपना काम कर रहे हैं और कानून पर सबको आस्था रखना चाहिए। भारत के हर नागरिक को आस्था रखना चाहिए। इसलिए भारतीय जनता पार्टी कहीं नहीं है, कानून अपना काम कर रहे हैं।
Legal experts say under the law, Chief Minister Hemant Soren can only be disqualified and not debarred from contesting elections, which leaves him with room to maneuver out of this political crisis. The Soren government alleges that the governor's reluctance to act on the Election Commission's recommendations is a tactic to create instability in the state through delay and bring down a democratically elected government in a non-BJP ruled state by poaching MLAs from the ruling dispensation. With Haribansh Sharma in Ranchi, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
But also from Jharkhand, this absolutely shocking story. A young woman, a tribal, who was brutally tortured, abused, beaten, even forced to lick urine from a person's house. She's working for a BJP leader who's married to an ex-IS officer. The BJP leader, in fact, even headed the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao movement in the state. The BJP has now suspended her after this video with this shocking testimony went viral.
हाँ लोहा का उससे मारा
ना ठीक ठीक
हाँ हम देखे थे
है ना। हम चाहते हैं ना जब ठीक हुए ना हम आगे और पढ़ना चाहिए। जानते हैं जब पकाने गई ना तब वो जो बेल्ट है ना उसको मारती थी।
आपको उसका बेल्ट था ना।
हाँ और इजू ना छोटा और करती थी ना।
कलछी से मारी है। वही मारी मैडम।
हाँ
सीमा पता है।
हाँ और जानते हैं भैया जो गरम तवा चला मारी।
Absolutely shocking story there. This young woman has said now that she wants to study. Even as she's in such pain in hospital, she says her dream is to study. Moving on, well, other news, speculation now that Congress leader Shashi Tharoor could run for Congress president after an article he wrote in a Kerala newspaper saying that it's good that elections are being held. He's refused to confirm or deny this. This as senior Congress leaders Bhupinder Singh Hooda and Prithviraj Chavan met Ghulam Nabi Azad in Delhi, and there was an exodus of leaders in the Jammu and Kashmir Congress today to join Ghulam Nabi Azad's new front.
Days after Ghulam Nabi Azad's bombshell resignation from the Congress, now Shashi Tharoor may throw his hat in the ring for the Congress president's post. Sources say the Kerala MP is considering contesting. In a newspaper article, Tharoor has welcomed the idea of an internal elections, but for now is not saying more.
People are free to speculate as they like. All I've written in my article is that elections are a good thing for the party. A democratic country like ours needs to have democratic political parties, and I welcome the fact that the Congress party has announced an election and is going to be conducting it openly and freely and fairly, and I think that's a very healthy practice.
In Delhi, senior Congress leaders Bhupinder Hooda, Anand Sharma and Prithviraj Chavan met Azad to ask him why he left even after elections to the party's top post had been called. Mr. Chavan claims the Gandhis are opting out of the race. Meanwhile, in Jammu, there were mass resignations by key Congress leaders in support of Ghulam Nabi Azad. Tara Chand, former J&K Deputy Chief Minister, is among over 60 Congress leaders who submitted their resignation today. The defectors say they've convinced Azad to float a new party as the Congress High Command failed to provide leadership.
पिछले 4-5 दिन से किस तरीके से रोज सैकड़ों की तादाद में लोग पार्टी छोड़ के आजाद साहब को ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं.
It is a crisis for the Congress like never before in Jammu and Kashmir. Azad has literally taken the party away with him in the region. his supporters claim that people from other parties are also in contact with them to join Azad.
The Congress, however, remained unfazed by the exodus and said it was preparing for its big, massive rally against rising prices and the Bharat Jodo Yatra in early September.
That all these things people are trying to do so that we should not ask questions to the Modi government. We are not going to escape you by your 3D policy of diversion, distraction and distortion.
All eyes are now on the October election for the Congress president's post. Will it throw up any surprises? With Nasir Musudi, Sunil Prabhu, NDTV.
Well, the other big headline, the new Chief Justice is a man in a hurry with a term of just over 70 days, and Chief Justice Lalit has announced that there will be now constitution benches which will be hearing questions of law. So 2 constitution benches will be sitting on Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays. A constitution bench headed by the Chief Justice UU Lalit will hear reservation matters on the 6th of September. Also amongst the cases to be heard by the constitutional benches will be on the validity of demonetization and the question over the National Register of Citizens. Also coming up will be the appointment of election commissioners, all among these cases to be heard by a 5-judge constitution bench. But the other big development today was the Supreme Court hearing on whether Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations in Bengaluru can be held in the Eidgah Maidan. Shrija joins me for more on that. Shrija, what are the details we have? Because the Supreme Court has ordered status quo. Why has this become such a controversial issue this year?
Well, all of a sudden, earlier this year, the right-wing organizations, this is in the month of March, started demanding that they should celebrate the Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations this year at Eidgah Maidan, where we are reporting from. This is in Chamrajpet in Bengaluru. So what you right now see behind me, though the Supreme Court, the Apex Court has ordered a status quo, which means Ganesh Chaturthi celebrations cannot be held. Now, as a precautionary measure, we see there are over 1,200 police personnel who have assembled here to ensure that there is no, law and order situation going out of control. So as a precautionary measure, they have assembled here at the moment. But as far as this particular case goes, we understand that there was a dispute earlier in the month of June as well, where the dispute was especially between the Waqf board, which had to prove the ownership rights, but eventually it failed. That is because we understand it was not given the Khata certificate. Khata means the title ownership certificate, which ideally should have been given by the civic body, the BBMP, but eventually it went on to prove that this particular land belongs to the Revenue Department of the government. Now, soon after that announcement was made, we understand the government decided for the first time to celebrate the Independence Day on August 15th. But that was it. There was no talks about whether they're going ahead with Ganesh Chaturthi celebration. But we clearly see that the Karnataka government succumbed to the pressure. Of course, it is just about 7 to 8 months to elections. They succumbed to the pressure. The deputy commissioner eventually had to submit the pleas, the request made by these right-wing groups, and they moved the Karnataka High Court, and Karnataka High Court also
right, so Shrija, so we're going to see probably many more of these flashpoints coming up before those elections we pointed out. But as of now, the Supreme Court has said status quo, asking that this hasn't happened for 200 years. Why this year? Well, the answer perhaps, as you said, are those elections. But let's look at the festivities, because really this year, 2 years after the pandemic, across India, preparations on in full swing. So the cities where this is really such a big festival, Mumbai and Hyderabad. Let's go across to you first. So it's, of course, officially celebrations begin from tomorrow, but so many people bringing the Ganesh idol home, and there's so much excitement in the air.
Absolutely, Sonia. In fact, this year 2,284 Ganesh Pandals will be there in Mumbai itself. This is happening 2 years after the gap, because we know there were several restrictions of COVID. In fact, I am near Ganesh Gali. This is known as Mumbai's Raja, and as you could see, the decorations, the huge decorations. This year, Kashi Vishwanath temple is being decorated. The Ganesh Pandal is being decorated with Kashi Vishwanath temple's decoration. And if you see on the left hand side, there are several decorations that have been made as well. We can see the Ganga Aarti that happens on the ghats of Kashi, that has also been painted over here, and as of now the pandal is not open for the public. This will start from tomorrow, and even in tomorrow morning what we can say is that people will be bringing the Ganesh idols to their households as well. Now one needs to remember that for the last 2 years there were a lot of restrictions. In fact, one year we saw that even the most famous Lal Bagh Raja they did not have the idol, and in fact the people over there were doing blood donation just to ensure that they follow the rules and regulations. But 2 years later now, since there is no restriction and more than 2,000 pandals are there only in Mumbai with such huge decorations, from tomorrow what we can say is that a lot of people will be on the streets, and celebration of the biggest festival of the city as well as the state will begin in Maharashtra.
Right, Sohit, and of course Uma, and Hyderabad as well. The markets are all packed. I mean, these are visuals that we haven't seen for 2 years. This year it seems people just want to look forward and forget all those stress, restrictions and various issues of the last 2 years.
Yes, indeed, Sonia. Over the next 10 days, starting tomorrow, everyone will be pandal hopping. Of course, the big ones, the Khairatabad Ganesh, the Bhaginagar Ganesh and the Balapur Ganesh, very, very famous. But everyone takes a Ganesha home, and you will go to each other's houses to see each other's Ganeshas as well. And today, of course, is the day for Ganesh shopping, when people will come out with their children as well, and the selections happen of what kind of a Ganesha we want to take home with us. So the POP Ganeshas also allowed in the pandals this time round. Of course, the police making big arrangements, not just because this is 2 years after the pandemic, but also because we are talking about a time when the atmosphere here was a little communally vitiated. The Ganeshas, of course, in big numbers from those people, and also, of course, the eco-friendly Ganeshas looking equally pretty this time round. They are also very, very dressed up. The government itself has distributed about 25 lakh of those eco-friendly Ganeshas. That one, of course, the one that we are seeing now, like the Lord Krishna. And there are very filmy Ganeshas as well that have been inspired by the RRR as well as the Pushpa films as well. This one, if you see, these ones are actually ready to carry with eco-friendly bags as well. They are very decked up, even though they are eco-friendly, and ready to take home. And something like this Ganesha, who is so well dressed up and in clay model, but costing about 3,500. So this is post the pandemic, but people are looking forward to times when they can actually celebrate without fear of the pandemic, and that's why they're coming up in big numbers and looking forward to the next few days when they can in fact go from pandal to pandal. Every street literally will have a pandal complex that's erected, and every complex will have its own Ganesha as well, other than every house, of course, having its own Ganesha. So looking forward to those festivities without any of those restrictions this time around, and the security forces certainly hoping that this will be, in a sense, incident-free, at least not any of those fears that we had in the past.
Right, Uma, Sohit, thanks so much for joining us. We'll keep coming back to you for the celebrations. But, well, some good news coming from the markets as they rose over 2.5% today after that fall yesterday. The Sensex up by 1,564 points, the Nifty gaining 446 points. All sectors today ended in the green. This included banking and financial shares, which gained the most. The rupee strengthened by 51 paise, ending at 79.45 to the dollar. This mainly because of strong foreign inflows into Indian markets today, boosting both the markets and the rupee.